Welcome to Unlocking the Parenting Code, all about boys. I'm Kathy, and this season is dedicated to exploring the unique world of raising boys. Parenting boys today can feel like trying to crack a complicated code, a mystery, especially when it comes to understanding their inner emotional world. Together, we'll dive into real life stories, share practical tips, and uncover insights to help you and your son thrive, not just survive. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's unlock the parenting code, one boy at a time. Today, we're joined by Nazia Savrimootoo, a dedicated mother to her 7-year-old son and an assistant principal at an international school, where she plays a vital role in supporting students' well-being and academic growth. Nazia brings a wealth of insight into parenting, particularly through her experiences living in different countries and adapting to new environments with her family. In this episode, we'll explore her journey of raising a curious, thoughtful young boy while balancing her career, studies, and family life. Nazia focuses on building strong family connections, open communication, and nurturing her son's curiosity and independence. She'll share the joys and challenges of creating routines in new places, her experiences with multicultural influences, and her commitment to raising her son in the best way she can. Welcome, Nazia.
Thanks, Kathy.
Nazia, could you start by sharing a little bit about yourself and your parenting journey so far, and perhaps some of the challenges that you have faced along the way?
Well, it's been a journey, that's for sure.
Hmm.
So like you said, I'm a mom of a 7-year-old boy. Um, we are from Dad and I are both from Mauritius, and that's where he was born. And then when he was 18 months old, we decided to go explore the world. And so we moved around a little bit. We went to Zambia and then to Jordan before being here in Japan. So different continents, different cultures, different languages, and it has been a journey adjusting to everything that's to the new environments every time. And if you throw in the pandemic, that has been even more interesting. So I have to say the first 2 years of his life um, were hard. He was sick when he was 9 months old. So when I say it was hard, it was mostly for me because when he got better, it was very, very hard for me to separate from him. And it made things challenging at first because we've never had a babysitter. So far, even if he's 7 years old, it is always very hard for me to let go. So when we were home, we had family helping us take care of him, and we had a very established routine. And then we moved, and then it was all gone. So what we do is we really try to keep things consistent as much as possible. So throughout the years, I was just reflecting about it last night, like his sleep routine has been the same ever since he was born. So that's one thing that we do try very hard to maintain, so that wherever we are in the world, it is like there is a sense of stability and consistency in his life. So we're trying our best. I love that you say that you talk about the parenting code because I still have not unlocked it.
Uh, I don't think there is any complete open to this little treasure, but it's a
Yeah,
process for sure.
it
How
is.
old was your son the first time that you made the move?
He was 18 months old, so
And
almost.
then and that one was to where?
We went to Zambia. That was
And,
our first move.
and how
Yeah.
long did you stay there?
We were there for only a year. It was it's an interesting year. Actually, we left. We when we moved to Zambia, we never. I don't want to. I want to say we never planned to move that quickly. But there were challenges in raising a little child in Zambia, and uh, so if I backtrack a little bit, I always thought, oh my God, I have the best little baby in the world, like sleeping his nights at 2 months old, and potty trained by one, and it was
Wow.
we had it going. And then we moved and it was gone.
Hmm.
So the nights were hard and the potty training was gone and it felt like starting again, all over again. First in Zambia, then a year later in Jordan. So the potty training did not come back until I want to say he was 4, um, because we moved around so much.
Hmm.
So as you can imagine, um, when you have a child that's potty trained at 1 and he loses it and gets back at 3, you, because you are moving and we were always moving for my job. It's always a lot of guilt
Yeah.
and a lot of was that the right choice for the family? So it was it was interesting, but like I said, and the funny part is, when you do like the potty training techniques we used for him to be potty trained at 1 don't work when he's 4. So it's a whole different setting, and you need to find other ways to train again and to get him here. And he's a stubborn little boy. Let's face it. So he would look for his nappy or around the house and tell me it's poop time and go get that nappy and tell me that that's the only way I'm going. So it was what we decided to do at that point is not stop buying the nappies, and we would be like, hey, there's no nappies around the house. The first time we did that, it was he went all around, found one in the drawer, and was like, there you go. And the second time he was like, okay, I'll try. And that's how we slowly started again. But yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
toileting is one of the few ways that a child can exert their authority and
Mhm.
power because it really is within their control to
Yeah.
some parts of toilet training. So 1 is really early for
Mhm.
a child, but especially a boy. Boys are usually later.
Yeah, we so it was a I don't want to say it was a choice, but we well, it was mostly like pooping where we would be like, "Hey, we went to the toilet, read a little story, and then, oh, I'm pooping. Yes, great." And then we would celebrate it. And yeah, it was a fun little
Mhm.
experiment, and it
Yeah.
was it was always fun. And that's one of the ways we get around him. Like if we want something done, we try to make it in a fun way, in a like let's make it a game. Just now, we had this going, and he didn't want to go out, and then Dad came in, and he's like, "You know what, Sharky really wants to go out. Let's bring Sharky out." So, and he was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, if Sharky." So we always like that's one of the ways we
Hmm.
make things going in the house through fun, through games, and it works
Yeah.
really well for him.
Well, that it helps a lot of children not feel the need to be resistant because they feel like it's not they're not being forced into something they don't want to do. Um, Nazia, like I'm always very curious about different cultures, and I find cultures just influence us so much, and I find it quite fascinating. How has your own upbringing influenced the way that you're raising your son?
Well, that's a really good question. Like I think when I was growing up, the the culture around parenting was more of a discipline approach where we want like the families want their child to do good in society, and that means something. And I come from like in Mauritius is very small.
Hmm.
And everybody knows everybody. So you truly are that representation of your parents. And it was hard walking away from this because what I want for him is to be his own person and to be able, I don't feel that growing up, because it was just the way it was. And my parents, I recognize it, were trying their best and did what they knew. And it was very much you do what we tell you to do.
Hmm.
And there was very limited choices in how we approached life as we grew up. So moving away from that, I think helped us as parents to value the ability to make choices. And that's one of the things that we want Kai to grow up with. We want him to be able to make choices. And it starts very little, right? Do you want to wear this or that? So
Yeah.
it's but we want to foster, we want him to feel empowered so he can make choices and feel that he has um his voice matters. And
Hmm.
I think that's the biggest difference from my upbringing in small little Mauritius, where every like you need to do what your parents want and what represent them the best way you can, into le- bringing Kai up. And I think what's even more interesting is the fact that he has lived in Mauritius for 18 months. And now he's 7 years old. So he's lived in other countries
Hmm.
way longer than he has there. So he doesn't know it there. What he knows is he remembers Jordan quite a lot. He knows Japan now, and um, he's one of those children whose culture is, they call them the definition of a third culture
Yeah.
kid,
Yeah.
where he's neither this nor that. He's somewhere in the middle, and I think there's a lot of potential there, but it's also very scary.
For
So
him or for you?
for me.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
doesn't know it.
Yeah.
He's enjoying it and he's loving it, like living here. And but it's also, we're not Japanese, and we are not, and he will never fully be Japanese.
Yeah.
So it's also like we're trying to get a bit of, and Japan is a wonderful country, and there's a lot of values that we as parents embrace.
Yep.
So that's that, and we are taking what we think matches our philosophy and trying to piecemeal it and make it work.
When you, I don't know, you know, when you visit family, wherever they are in the world, but when you visit family that are from your background, do you get any backlash for the way that you are raising your son?
The funny part is we have not visited Mauritius in a very long time, but grandma comes and visits. I think the beauty of it is that they recognize that we are in that very unique situation. And like in your introduction, you were saying that we are a family that try to embrace and foster open communication. There were times where it was hard because we did have different points of view about, and you know how grandmas get, their job is to treat kids in a certain way, and we are
Hmm.
trying to do it in a different way. And I think it's always been, hey, let's stop here, let's have this conversation. And so we would explain how we view things and how why we're doing it. um and in general, it has been, I want to say, it has been pretty easy, because it's like when we talk about it, it kind of makes sense where we are heading and why we're doing it in a certain way. And there has been no backlash. It's usually, oh yeah, I see what you
Interesting.
yeah, yeah, it's different, but
Yeah.
different doesn't mean bad.
So
That's
what I have found, like we kind of have some similarities in background, and what I've come to look at, like looking at it further down the road, is that my way of parenting probably would have been different had we remained in Canada or had we lived there. But what I find is that living in other countries and cultures, I really, as a parent, feel quite empowered to, write the rules myself because I'm going to be different no matter what I do. So I might as well really follow my heart and what I think is the best. So it kind of, for me, being an expat in different places has kind of given me a freedom to really focus on what my values are, our values as a family, and work on it that way. I have found the family unit, our family unit, to be stronger for having made these moves. What about you?
Yeah, as you were saying, and I was like, yeah, that is actually true. Um, we knew from the start, knowing who we are as parents and our different backgrounds. We're both from Mauritius, but coming from different backgrounds and different cultures. So we knew from the start that it would it would be tricky navigating parenting in Mauritius because
Yeah.
it's and that was part of the reason why we decided to move.
Yeah.
So we knew all the challenges we would be facing because of all the influence, and it's so, like I said, it's so small. So those
Hmm.
you feel those, and you can it can very easily turn into a situation where you feel trapped because you like everybody's saying something and you're here and you're like, okay, this is family, we love them,
Yeah.
so we'll listen to what they're saying. So knowing all that was coming, we decided to make that move when he was quite young. And it was a big
Big
shock.
decision. Yeah.
Our first move was a big decision. It was a big shock. Getting into a country where there's no, we had our routines at home where it was very yeah, every day we did the same thing. It was picking him up from school, going to the beach, going home for dinner, and then our sleeping routine. It was very much set. And then you move, and it takes months to know where you are and
Yeah.
what your routine will look like. But at the same time, being on our own allowed us to,
Yeah.
say, decide, okay, we're gonna go. This is what we're gonna do. This is what we're gonna stick with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it has made those conversation with family and whenever they visit, and it has made those way easier because
Yeah.
everybody realizes, yeah, we're here for a month, 2 months.
Yeah.
They're here all the time, and this
Yeah.
is what they decided. So it has
Exactly.
it has been very, very freeing in that respect.
So one of the things that I know was a concern of ours the first time we moved as a family, and I've heard it from, so many parents when they're in the international school system, but it's the whole concept of friendships. And, your child, whatever age they are, going into a new country, a new culture, a new school system, like the friendships, especially in a diverse environment, can present really wonderful opportunities and also some challenges. So, especially like when he was older, like coming into Japan, what are some of the things that you've been able to do that have helped make that transition smoother for your son?
We're still working on that, I
Oh,
would say.
well, he's 7. He's
He's
7.
7, yeah, and it is so when we came to, like, and this is how we connected. When his transition into Japan was a hard one, um because of how old he was, because we had the pandemic and he was homeschooled for a year, so he did not have those social
Yeah.
interactions. So when we came here, it was a hard transition. It was hard for him to find it in him to make the connections because all he knew was mom and dad and
Yeah.
a couple of adult friends we interacted with. So it was it was interesting seeing him navigate it and try to connect with people. Last year was, and what we do is we usually um, have him we have play dates, and
Mhm.
we try to make the connections with families we know have and you know that after some time, you don't know, it's always the first few months you're just letting him find his way in school
Yeah.
while you are trying to find out which parents kind of share similar philosophies
Yeah.
and values. And then that's when we started having a couple play dates, like going to, like, his birthdays, we usually invite the whole class, because it's a good
Yeah.
opportunity to see the interactions and
Hmm.
see who you will interact with
Yeah.
when you're choosing to have the play date. So um, it's not easy because sometimes like he chose to be, he made friends, he befriended some he made some choices that we found interesting,
Hmm.
that we were not always comfortable with. So we usually, so he would come home and tell us because that's who we are as a family, and we talk about it. So he felt comfortable coming home and telling us, "Hey, I did this and that, and I said this and that." Um, and when we dug a little bit, it was like they were feeding on each other. So we had the conversations, and we try to redirect like gently in a
Mhm.
way. It's
Yeah.
hard. We try to redirect, hey, um, think about who you are, and is that what you want to be, and is that what the image you want to project. And so we've tried to redirect him gently, um, and I want to say it has worked, because this year, um, he has found his people. I want to say it is this year that he's
Have
found.
you have you ever found like I know he's still young, so and actually I think it is a lot easier the younger they are because you still control a great deal of their world. But have you found any times when the culture that you were living in, the way of being, a child or the social interactions that are acceptable for society were not ones that you personally wanted to instill in your son. Did you ever come up with those cultural clashes?
Oh yes,
Okay.
we had a big moment, which is why we decided to leave Jordan, because some of the things that he was coming back home telling us and doing, like just a very easy example is, it's culturally accepted to spit,
Hmm.
and he would come and spit, and it would be like, whoa, that's not, no, we don't do that in the house. And
Yeah.
and he would say some of the things he would say, some of the ways he would approach other people of different cultures were becoming very cliquish.
Hmm.
So it was hard. It was really, really hard, like dealing with those clashes and having those conversations. And he was very young at the time. So for him,
Yeah.
that's what he knows,
Yeah.
that's what people do here. So I'm gonna do it. And I don't, I, the conversations around that were not necessarily working.
Hmm.
So it was really, we had to put together. And I know reward systems and our extrinsic motivation, and we know all that. But I think that's one of the things that we put in place, where we were like, hey, this is who we are. We are, if we're seeing this happening, oh, it was not a reward system at the time. It was a punishment system. So
But
it's
sometimes like I know that that might not be considered best practices, but I think the reality of parenting, when you're really in the thick of things, and you will pull at any strings in the hope of seeing some positive results. So, yeah, I know both of us have a similar thought on those kinds of things, but I think it's important for people to, you know, if you've gone down that road, it's not we've all been there. We've all done it. And the tricky thing is that often it works for a short period of
for a
time,
short period of time, but it
but
works.
often it works. So it makes you think, okay, I can breathe for a moment, things. So anyway, I just wanted to say parenting is tough. And when things are tough in your home, um, you know, we all make not mistakes. We all make choices.
Mhm.
And usually all of our choices are in the best, we're thinking it's in the best interest of our children. And so I don't, it's really important kind of not to feel guilt for choices that you made then that maybe you wish you didn't, or maybe you would make different choices now. But that's really part of parenting. Okay, so another, if you don't mind, I'll just move. Another thing I wanted to ask you about because um I wonder, have you had any challenges trying to balance the roles between being an educator and a parent at the same time, and especially in the same school?
Oh, it was tough. That was tough. It's like being, and I want to start off here. Being an educator and a parent in the same school has a lot of beautiful moments. I
Yeah.
saw him on the monkey bars for the first time doing the whole thing by himself. I did not, I had a chance to see it. So when he gets a certificate during assembly, I get to see it. It's a beautiful thing. The the other side of it is you know everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the school we're at is not a big school, so you hear everything and you know everything. So, and like I said, our first year here was challenging for him. So, and I knew everything that was happening all day long. And sometimes you just want to step in there and say, "Hey, I can handle this."
Yeah.
And that's when it gets hard because
Yeah.
you really need to block it off and let the educators do their job and trust that they know what they're doing and that they're doing it with the best interest of your child at heart, because they're your colleagues and you know them and it's anything that's not on the positive end of the spectrum
Yeah.
is challenging. It is really, really hard, especially in my role where I oversee well-being and support.
Yeah.
And it's you
Yeah.
want what's best for one of the things, and I want to share that story is where I felt that, oh my God, I'm looking at the well-being of all the kids in this school, but I don't get a word into the well-being of my own child
Mm.
because you try to keep to block it
The
off.
boundaries. Yeah.
And you tried, like I never go to his classes still now, like I, for better or worse, this is not a class I go into. I trust my team to do their work and to take care of that class. But it's always there have been times where I have thought, yeah, I'm doing all this for all the other kids and
Mm,
not
that'd be
for my
tough.
own. So
That would be tough. But in the same light, you have the opportunity because you are a fly in the wall at school to, when you are in your family life, to take the skills that you have and do it on a personal level. Okay, about home life. Tell me what do you think is the main role of the father? Like you like myself have chosen a route where you are the main breadwinner. I did the same thing. So there definitely was a period of time when we first made that transition that we kind of had to define what the role was of our son's father. How'd that look for you guys? Or what do you think, actually, if you don't want to talk about your own personal family, you can, like, what do you think is the role of a father?
Oh wait, I don't mind talking about it because our family is what I know there. But like you said, we made the decision, um, and it's a transition period where you are at home and both of you are working and you go abroad and it's only one of us working. And then we had that little period where we were both working. Dad was in part-time and I was in full-time, and then we had that choice of whether dad is going to work as well. And that's when we really sat down and defined that role.
Yeah.
Because it was, we had the choice of both working again when Kai was 6 years old. And we did sit down and went, what would that look like for him and for us if dad went in full time? And that's when we made the decision of we're not going down that road because
Mhm.
what as parents. So, and yeah, as parents, we made the choice of limiting screen time, for example, to a maximum. So we have one movie per weekend. If he's lucky, two, but it's usually one movie per weekend. And what we thought was if we were both working, the easiest solution there is just put him in front of a screen, which
Mhm.
we were not comfortable with. So dad's role is really making sure that he has Kai has a parent around
Yeah.
who can guide him and who can help him spend his energy, or some an adult there who can take care of him. That's important for
For
like
for a lot of people, that's a luxury. That
it
was a luxury for us. That's why we moved. to a different
Mhm.
country. It's something that when you do feel that strongly about that for whatever reasons,
Yeah.
it's a gift if you're able to pull it off. So
It's beautiful. It's like
yeah,
yesterday Kai was sick and we were like, you know what? It's okay. It's
yeah,
okay. We don't have to take care of childcare. We don't have to worry about anything.
yeah,
Dad will bring you to the doctor. Dad will take care of you. And it's
yeah,
like you said, it's a luxury because and we realize that we're very lucky to
yeah,
be there and to have that choice of um having somebody and having somebody you trust unconditionally to take
yeah,
care of the child.
yeah,
And that's the choice that we made when we decided dad was going to be a stay-at-home dad.
yeah. What's been one of the most surprising things, the most surprising part of raising a son, and kind of has Kai taught you anything unexpected about parenting?
Kai has taught me a lot of things. So
Mm,
like when we started this journey, I did not feel ready. I did not feel I had it in me to be a mom, full stop.
hmm
Um, and then when it was a boy, it was very, for some reason, it was even scarier. There's
Yeah.
a girl I can relate to. A boy is it's a little boy. Um, but I have to say that the way he sees things and Kai is a very deep thinker,
hmm
and he's somebody like he's a little boy who will go very like at the moment his interest is in cars, and I like he tries very hard to get me involved, but it's not what I like. But what he has taught me is that and the power of perseverance and of like passion, that and how deep he can go into a passion. And I think that's we because I'm also studying at the moment, so I'm it's a journey whole
hmm
journey. But I think how deeply he goes into things that he cares for, um, I can very easily relate to with my studies,
Yeah.
and we can talk about it. So
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful thing that we can talk about our experiences studying. And
hmm
sometimes he says something, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna try that. So he was talking, I can't remember exactly what it was when he was saying something about writing, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try that for my next assignment. How about that? And then when I did it, we talked about how it worked. So yeah, he has, I think, and little boys have so much energy.
hmm
Goodness
Yeah.
gracious. I can only talk to little boys because this is what I know. But yeah, he will pull me out of bed on Sunday morning to go out and see, like, I want to go to the beach and watch the fish jump. And so it's like I'm getting out of bed and doing that, taking that extra step and learning to be a morning person and learning to see things the way he sees things has been beautiful.
What would you say would be the biggest challenge raising a son?
Waking up in the morning on Sunday.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I think it was the unknown. Raising any kid, it was the unknown. Raising a son, it has been like when you don't know, uh, like why he's doing the things he's doing. Like those
Mhm.
transitions were hard for him,
Yeah.
and and that's where it's tricky because theoretically, you know what's happening. You have that big picture, and this is what I do for a living. I know what's happening.
hmm
But when you're in the thick of it and it's happening to you, it it's very easy to take things personally.
hmm
And that has been a challenge. Like separating separating what was happening and making it like seeing the bigger picture of this is happening and thinking rationally in those moments has been a challenge. um
How do you think your parenting would have looked if you had given birth to a little girl instead of a little boy?
I think that it would probably have been easier to relate to the experiences and to how a little girl thinks and grows up. It would probably have been, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm completely off with this, but at least knowing knowing that you had the same experience, so you
Mhm.
have connection. I think that would have been that would have been the difference. With a little boy, it's very foreign. It feels very like I don't know why and what the reason where my mind is going with this is um and he was very young and he starts discovering his body and I was like, how do I deal with this? And it was and I know deep down inside, I know the research and I know how to
Yeah.
deal with it. But when you're
Yeah.
in the thick of it, you're like, what's happening here? And when it happened, I have to say, we were in quarantine in a hotel room, and we were all together stuck in that room for 2 weeks.
Mm.
So it was like I felt very, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but disconnected because I had no
Yeah.
way of I had no reference point for it.
So
So
how have you dealt with that? Like what did you like I know what I did. I had similar feelings, like just not knowing uh, what that looked like to raise a boy because my family was predominantly female. So and I know I know the female side of things. So like what how have you how have you dealt with that feeling of disconnection?
so one of the big things is I knew what I did not want. I knew I've seen patterns of behavior and parenting when I grew up that I did not want to see repeated. So that was my biggest reference point. And I always, and we always relate everything we do to our values and who we are as a family. So that was the glue that stuck us together
Okay.
during those moments. It was very much this is what we know, we don't want this, and we know
Hmm.
this is never gonna happen in our house. So we're putting it aside and sticking to our values of communication and of our philosophy around parenting, and we really want him to be his own person, and we want him to be a good human being. So bearing that in mind is how we've tried to build those. I've tried to build those bridges with him.
So
So
what do you think is the most important value that like to instill in our little boys today? Like why?
I would want the first word that comes to my mind is kindness. I think that's a big one for us. We want him to be a kind person. His own person making his own choices, whatever those choices are, we want him to be kind.
So
And
then
that
how do you navigate that with like stereotypical societal expectations about little boys?
that's when it becomes a little bit tricky because when we have our values and we talk about it at home, and that's when communication comes into the equation. So he goes to school and there are other parents there who have this stereotypical view of how boys should be growing up, and so he sometimes comes home and said, hey, I did that, um, because he knows he can talk to us about anything, and then we will talk about, okay, let's think about what you did there. Oh, he came home the other day saying, I hate so and so. I was like, okay, hate is a really strong word. Let's talk about it. And then we talked about it, and he was like, he ended up like when I say we talked about it, it's mostly me throwing in questions. That's how we interact.
Yeah,
He talks. He's a
he's a
Shinkansen train.
talker.
He's
Hmm.
a talker. And I usually ask questions during our conversation. So as I prompted him and I was actually asking those questions, he ended up saying, hey, you know what, Mom? I don't hate them. They're not my friends, but they're girls in my class. So I don't hate them. Um,
Yeah.
so it
It's really important to give them that perspective and vocabulary. I had a little guy just this week say something like that. Like,
Hmm.
I think he felt quite close to me. So he just said, "Oh, I hate this group of people." Like he was talking about a group of people, a cultural group. And because I knew where he was coming from, like his culture, I I shared with him a story on my perspective that tied in really well, like from where I had lived in a different culture, and there was that kind of animosity and hatred between two countries. And the more we talked about it, he finally got to the point and he kind of said, yes, it's not hate for the country, it's a hate for the violence. And so it was kind of like sometimes we can react to the words they're saying, and they just don't have that agility in their language for what they really want to say. So
Exactly.
that's a really
Yeah, and
yeah, that's
I learned that the hard way. It was when he said we were in Jordan and we were talking a little bit earlier about how the values were not connected to who we are. And he came home the first time he said something to me, and I lost it.
yeah.
I really did. I was not expecting my little boy to come and say something along those lines, and I really didn't know how to react. And so like we discussed about earlier, you're in the thick of the moment and you just react.
Yeah.
And then when I took a step back, realized it was not the best way to deal with it. So we talked about it and I apologized. I'm sorry, I should not have reacted that way. And then we talked about it, and that's how I learned that the words that they say sometimes that's not what they mean.
That's right. So if you could, especially, I find, especially when they have heard some bad words, and so they bring them home and try it out at home, and that often brings up something in us that, like you said,
Mhm.
like that's my son talking like that, like boy. Um, and when we can stop and even just get really curious and say, "Do you know what that means?" And sometimes it's really funny what they think that means because they don't know and they've taken it out of context from
Mhm.
whatever situation. So part of parenting, I think, is that curiosity, like when you can kind of stop yourself if you can and just not make the assumption that what he said is what he meant. So that can be difficult.
And I think one of the things with that too is, and then again, I have learned this the hard way is, um, I never, I always assume the best of him. If he says something bad, I'll be curious and I'll ask questions and we'll talk about it because he's a little boy who's exploring the world and who's interacting with people I don't always control.
Hmm.
And who has all those interactions. At home, I can say exactly this, we don't watch TV, but when he's out there, when they have access to things that we would not necessarily
Yeah.
allow in our house. And so my philosophy around this is he's my little boy. I know him. Um, and I know who he is, so I always assume the best out of him. If he says something that shocks me now, it's mostly okay. Yeah, that's like I'll ask questions. One day, I think it was last year, I received a communication where he said something that was interpreted really mean by the teacher to another student, and I was like, and instead of reacting as I would have maybe the
Yeah.
previous year, we went to the beach that night and we were like, "Hey, I heard this. Tell me more."
Mm.
And then
Yeah.
he told me, and it was his intentions and what he meant were really factual and very like, yeah, that's what it is. And it was just interpreted the wrong way. So, and it was in.
So, okay, so sorry, I want to ask you because the next thing I was going to get into was discipline. So, how do you like handle discipline? Like you seem to have a beautiful way of using communication and curiosity to kind of diffuse a lot of situations. You put a focus on him being able to get his energy out. You're in nature a lot, you don't have a lot of screen time. Like you've got a lot of really good things in place for your son. How do you handle it if something that you have talked about and you know that he knows, and he makes a choice and maybe repeatedly. So he makes a choice or choices that this is not the same as it was the first time. So how do you handle that kind of a situation?
We have six roles in our family, and
Hmm.
those six roles, every time something, and we created them together.
Hmm.
So we're respectful. We keep our hands and feet to ourselves. We keep the house clean. Forgot the fourth. We have five actually, and the last one was we are honest. So if anything falls out of those roles, we will usually, and we have our, it came a lot with routines and consistency where, hey, this happened. One of us know that if we know that it's wrong, we usually both know that it's wrong. So, okay, you hit me. I'm not going to react here. I'm going to withdraw myself from this situation. And you sometimes it's just a matter of, you know what? Um, we're losing a privilege, because this is something we discussed together. We talked about it together. What do you think would be a good um, consequence or a sanction or punishment, whatever you want to call it, if we break those family rules?
Hmm.
Depending on he decided that one of the consequences would be time out, where he would withdraw himself from the situation for 7 minutes because he's 7 years old, and he
Hmm.
would go to his bedroom. So if it gets a little bit, it escalates, it would be like, listen, you're losing your privilege of watching screen this weekend. And he knows those. We
Yeah.
don't usually go to the big consequence of
Yeah.
losing his movie on the weekend because that's big
It's
for him.
family time.
And
Yeah.
it is family time, and it's really big for him. But he usually because we have been very consistent and this is very established in our household, it would be if something happens, he gets a warning where I usually repeat what he's doing. So
Hmm.
you are still playing with your cards, whatever. Like it's just me repeating what he's
Yeah.
doing. Usually it stops.
Yeah.
Usually when I do this, oh yeah, I should not be doing this. I should be cleaning up. So it slowly escalates
Hmm. Yeah.
till it reaches a point where, you know what, I'm gonna now is the time where we put our foot down and to go in your bedroom. If you're not going to do that, I'm going to get really upset, and I don't want to get upset in front of you. So I'm going to withdraw myself from this situation. In any case, you'll have time to calm down and to regulate until you feel that it's okay for you to come back.
Hmm.
And usually he will take that time to, we call it time out, but it's really self-regulation time where he takes that time and regulates, and then he will come back and say, that was a really bad choice I made here, Mama. I'm sorry I hit you, or something like that. And
Yeah.
he would be able to verbalize
Yeah.
once he's calm, because in the heat of the moment, his brain just shuts down
Oh,
and he's
it's
upset
hard. Yeah.
and
It's
he's
hard.
frustrated, and he will
Yeah.
hit. If he reaches the point where he hits, it's usually we're way up there. And it's either that I've been doing a poor job in communicating the expectations, or that he's really tired or really grumpy or he has a really bad day. So it's either, in any case, it will be, you know what, you're alone by yourself, find a way to regulate, and until you're ready to come and see us, but you're on your own until you're able to verbalize and talk
Mm.
about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things he's come to doing now is when he wants to hit and he really feels it coming, he runs to the guest room, grabs a pillow, and punches the pillow.
That's great.
That's his
Yeah.
way of like, and then he comes back and he's like, I'm okay. Now we can talk. I'm upset.
Yeah,
So
those are important skills for a child to learn.
yeah. So
Yeah,
we're
that's good.
slowly getting there. Yeah.
So,
Slowly getting
Nazia, what if there was one thing that you could change about how society in general views and treats boys, what would it be?
That's a really good question. I think that one of the things that I would change is um, let them be children without having this those stereotypes of what a little boy or what a man is supposed to be. They're children. They are like they have let them be children and make their choices before deciding for them that they should be this or that or that.
Mm,
Um, it starts with the very little choices. Like something that we found out very recently is um, at some point he was very much into Frozen, so
mhm,
we got him a little Elsa doll, and he felt really self-conscious bringing it to school. Where he usually loves bringing his Sharky or his like toys at school, he was very, very self-conscious bringing Elsa at school. Where he loves, where he when he's at home, he would play with her, and so it's slowly getting to him that he's expected to behave in a certain way. And I think that's if I could change one thing, it would be like
yeah,
let them be boys, let them be children.
yeah,
Let them enjoy what and explore what they want, what they like. Because this is how they will discover who they are. And
mhm,
that's how they will end up being good people at the end of the day. So
yeah.
that's things that I would change.
Okay,
All the stereotypes around little boys.
yeah. Nazi, I'm trying to be mindful of the time here, but before I go on to the last two questions, is there anything that I didn't ask you or that we didn't talk about that you'd really like to share with parents that might be listening?
Um, I'm just thinking of there was that one story that I want to share with you, and that's it was his birthday in October, and one of our friends asked us. So I've been my kids are adults now. What are 7 year old little boys into today? Um, and one of the things I felt really good about saying is, hey, we're lucky because he still enjoys a good old remote controlled car. And
Hmm.
that's something we take a lot of pride in. The I think it was hard. There were times where we felt when he was when we were in quarantine in that hotel room, always goes back to that, and we would be like, "Do you think it's time? Do you think we can show him a movie?" It would buy us 2 hours. Like,
Yeah.
but we held strong. He watched his first movie when he was um 5, yeah, just before coming to Japan.
Wow.
So that's we held strong. There was no screen in our household until quite recently, and that shaped who he is as a child.
Hmm.
Um, has shaped his interest. We always hear a lot about, oh my God, he speaks so much and he reads so much, like, and it's just because he's been given the opportunity to do it, and that's something as a mom I feel really good about.
So the home environment is probably the most critical part of child raising for whether it's a girl or a boy.
Hmm. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. One other thing is for all parents out there who are raising bilingual little children, little persons, um, and I had a lot of anxiety around it because we are both French speakers, and we made the choice when we were back home to speak to him in English because we wanted him to speak English as well. And then we moved. Um, so our choice initially was he'll hear French everywhere around him, so let's
Hmm.
expect him to English. And we moved, and he heard English everywhere, and we kept talking to him in English. But it's so very interesting how much he absorbed of just mom and dad talking to each other in
Yeah.
French. And
Yeah.
it's so we thought we could keep secrets and have conversations in French, planning birthday gifts and stuff. And then he would say, "Hey, yeah, you're right. I like that." So, so it's
Mm.
and now he speaks both. So there is a lot of anxiety around like he will speak later or he will they will there will be a delay somewhere. But it's a beautiful thing when when they are able to speak two languages that are close to your heart.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think it's a gift when especially when they're younger, because like you said, they absorb languages so naturally when they're younger. And I can't remember what the statistic is. Something if before 7, when they have acquired a language, they don't have any, like they have a natural accent for whatever the second language or third language or whatever it is. Yeah, I think it's a real gift, but I personally I don't like the kill and drill.
mhm.
Like, I like it to be natural. I like
Yeah,
it to be
100%.
a motivational thing. Like, you want to speak that language because that's the only language your grandfather speaks. So,
Mhm.
something, or the kid next door, they speak that language.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there's,
that's nice.
yeah,
So
real life stuff.
yeah, he's learning Korean at the moment because his
Oh,
friend is Korean.
yeah,
So that's beautiful. I love that.
yeah, yeah. That's nice. Very nice. Okay, Nazia, let's go on to the final two questions. So the second to the last is for fun. And if you were to make a movie about your family life up till this point, what would the title be? And then what would a short summary or synopsis be for the movie?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I think uh, the funny thing is we were talking with a colleague this week and we were talking about um how we would be writing a book soon
Hmm.
called Give It Time. I think that's the power of time. I think something with time. Um,
Mm,
I think that would be, and a synopsis of this would be, you know what? We're all growing together in this situation, and time is a beautiful thing, especially for a family that's moving a lot. It's You can be as consistent in your routines as you want. Um, Things take time. It took
mm,
him, I want to say, a full year to adjust to being in Japan.
yeah,
And it took him another full year to find a close friend he could really connect with. And it took us 7 years to be where we are
yeah,
as
yeah.
parents. I think the power of time would probably be um,
Mm.
that movie.
Well, that sounds like a movie that your son would like to watch.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Very nice. Thank you. All right. To finish up, I want you to picture yourself sharing advice with Kai as he enters into the world of parenting himself. What would you want him to know as he's getting ready for his first child to come into this world?
I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give him is give yourself grace. There's a lot that we do as parents, and there's a lot of guilt that we carry. There's a lot of patterns we're trying to break. And I think every parent is trying the best they can with the knowledge, skill sets, tools that they have. So I would tell him, you know what? Like, I've gone to sleep many times carrying guilt for what I've done, like how I reacted to a situation on that day, and waking up and telling him, you know what, I reacted really poorly yesterday. I'm so sorry. And he would be like, yeah, let's move on. Next stop.
Yeah.
So, like, why are you talking about that?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that would be the biggest piece of advice I would give him.
Yeah. Good advice. That's good advice. Nazia, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your wisdom and your insights. And I know how precious a parent's time is, so I hope that you feel that I've honored yours. And it has been such a pleasure talking with you. And I'm sure our listeners will enjoy this episode as much as I have recording it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you for the opportunity to share. We're all learning. There's no answers to everything, but if anything that I have said today somebody can connect with, I'm just happy.
Well, thank you for taking the risk to come and speak with me. So I'm sure somebody will pick something out of this that will make their parenting life just a little bit smoother, a little bit easier. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy.
If you're a parent raising a boy in today's complex world, be sure to explore sonhoodcoaching.com. You'll discover expert guidance and support designed to help you unlock your full parenting potential. As Amelia Gambetti says, this job is too difficult and too beautiful to do alone. Together we can explore this adventure and discover the magic of raising boys.